How are y'all dickheads doing? It is I, once again, Dick Record, coming to you live from the studio in New York City. We're going to be doing the farewell to the format where I open up my 68, almost nice, packs of Duskmourn House of Horror that I accumulated over the past only 2 months of playing this format on Arena, recording it and showing it to you guys. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Go to my new channel also, Record Player 1, link in the description, and give that a follow as well. But more importantly, come over to twitch.tv/DickRecord, link in the description, where you can catch me streaming video games, leathercraft, and other assorted nonsense every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from around 4 to around 8 Eastern Standard Time. But with that out of the way, I'm gonna shut up now. I really like Duskmourn. I don't know about you guys. Ooh, is that my first Overlord of the Balemerc? Never got to draft this. I only got to do 13 drafts this whole season. And I don't know if it was because of my own malaise towards drafting this past season, or I know that part of it's because we didn't get enough time with this set. We only got 2 months. And ooh, there's a Doomsday Excruciator. Nice reference to the card Doomsday, both in the name as well as what it does when it enters after it's cast, but you don't want to cast it for 666, right? Shroud Stomper, another card that goes in this deck because you want to actually reanimate these cards. And then a Murder. Wow, this format was, I'm gonna say it, really enjoyable. Let's start talking about the things that I liked about the format. First and foremost, it was a slower format. This is my first Marina Vendrell. I never drafted one of these. Every time I saw the 5-color, and this is still playable, and we'll get into why a 5-color legendary is actually playable in this format. But it's just, it's kind of risky. You need to get all that fixing. Arabella, hi Arabella, you jerk. But yeah, I really enjoyed the format according to the 17 lands data, and I will post this there. So the average win turn in Premier Draft was like around turn 8.7, 8.8, which is slightly slower than Wilds of Eldraine Premier Draft, and Traditional Draft was slightly faster at 8.5 to 6. Which was slightly slower than Bloomborough. Well, of course it was. This set was slower than, it's a side grade between Outlaws of Thunder Junction, which another set that I really enjoyed. Almost as slow as Lord of the Rings, which is kind of good. It's where you kind of want to be. You don't want to be too fast. I hate when you're playing a format and then suddenly, you manage to die on turn 3. Which was what happened a lot in Bloomborough. You thought you'd be fine at like 14 life, and then all of a sudden, oh, okay, the Trumpet Blast effect with your 4 bunnies just killed me. Cool. Valgavoth and Shroud Stomper. Oh god, so the complexity of the format was great. I couldn't crack it. I don't know how to really evaluate anything. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. Like, it felt like every week there was something new that I had to like take into account. As a result, and you'll probably stop listening right now, please don't. But this is the first format, and I don't know how long, probably since I started drafting on Arena, that I didn't get a trophy during my time drafting it, right? And I felt like we were drafting some good decks, and all of a sudden I would just go like 3 and 3, 2 and 3. Like, I never got over that hump, and that's not a me thing. I was watching other content creators and watching them also have like the same issues where it's just like, yeah, 3 and 3, 2 and 3, 1 and 3, 3 and 4. And it's like, it's not just me. It's not just me. And I think it's because it's a very fun and complex format. And that's great. I didn't feel defeated despite the fact that I had never trophied. I never felt defeated. I didn't want to move off from this pack either, because it's another pack where it's just like, would you like to play Reanimator? Shroud Stomper and Valgavoth. If you were in these decks in the Reanimator deck, you kind of wanted to go long, right? And I really I played, I think, Reanimator like 2 or 3 times. And every time I drafted a Valgavoth, there was always a game. And this is a testament to how good the format was. There was always a game where I was able to like stall the game out long enough to just go 9 mana Valgavoth, your turn. And just watch my opponent kind of like shrug, sigh, and then attack me, and then just like realize like, I'm not blocking that. I'm just gonna swing at you with this 9/9 lifelinker. You can't do anything about it. Even if you have a removal spell, it's gonna cost you your board. But at the same time, it's 9 mana, right? So it better win you the game. I had one opponent use the Macabre Waltz or whatever spell to try to kill everything on the board except for Valgavoth. But then that spell got exiled, and then they passed the turn, And then it was like, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, I could just cast this, gain 45 life as Valgavoth kills everything and then attack. Oh, wow. Okay. And my opponent scooped immediately. Shroud Stomper was also fun. Like, you could just cast it. You didn't have to reanimate it. Reanimation in the reanimate deck wasn't necessarily a requirement, is what I'm getting. But let's talk about the colors. They actually seemed really balanced, right? If you look at the lane line cycle, I did not appreciate in this format. For the most part, they seemed pretty useless. If you look at where the best colors were, right? Like, ironically, white was in both the best color combination, the best 2 color combinations, as well as in the worst. And I feel like that really made the format feel balanced, right? Like one of the best formats was blue white, and another one was red white. They were great. If you could get over on your opponent, oh, you could win the game so quickly, or you would go in red white, or you would go to Value Town in blue white, and suddenly you'd have like 7 or 8 gremlins, like my last draft, right? Speaking of red white, Arabella made the red white deck work because you could just, even if it was a bad attack, if you had like enough small creatures out, you had enough gremlins somehow, if you just attacked with her, sometimes you would drain your opponent for 6, and it's just like, sure, you kill her, I don't care, I just hit you for 6. I created a life gap between us so big that I don't think you're going to come back from it, and I have a flyer, you know, or something like that. So the red-white deck was really good, and then the blue-white deck was just like, oh, can you keep getting Eerie Eerie triggers? If you can, this is going to go swimmingly. Victor Valgavoth Seneschal, this was really the kind of card that you wanted to splash in like another deck, because even though he does say like, oh yeah, you can reanimate something from your graveyard, it's really a bunch of Eerie triggers, and you could get them in white, but black there weren't as many. So I think that this guy was actually really good in as a splash in another deck that was playing either white or black, but primarily white. I did splash this one in a blue-white deck that turned it Esper. That was fun, Esper Reanimator, and I did trigger the reanimation thing, to which my opponent just scooped. They were just like, nope, no thanks, I'm done. Because the rooms, especially if we had some of the cheap rooms that didn't necessarily add to the board, but would like surveil or something. Sure, for 1 blue mana, surveil 2, right? And I think that's well, let's finish talking about the color pairs, right? So blue white, red white, fantastic color pairs. Red green, right? Oh, the delirium colors were red green, red black. Well, red black was the sacrifice deck. It was green red or green black, right? Those were the delirium colors. Previous one was terrible, and delirium was super easy to pull off because of cards like Manifest Dread, right? As well as the fact that the set was designed around getting delirium, right? So you just incidentally would have artifact creatures and enchantment creatures. Oh, here's a win con that I never got to draft. Wait, no, I drafted this once. And so if you milled one of those cards, or if you just had one of them die, another Grievous one, get out of here. If you had one of them die, it's like, cool, that's halfway towards delirium. And there were cards that would just get you to delirium by themselves, like Manifest Dread. The card, it's just called Manifest Dread. If you put an enchantment creature into the graveyard, and then Manifest Dread itself being a sorcery, hey, an Enduring Courage, that would be like 3 parts of the way towards getting delirium. So if something else went into your graveyard, you probably already had it. So this card was in the one draft that I didn't record accidentally, and I drafted 2 of these in pack 1. Pack 1, pick 1, pack 1, pick 2, Enduring Courage, Enduring Courage. I went 0-3. I don't know how I pulled that off. I was trying to draft aggro and it just didn't work. I think I ended up in Jund. I don't want to talk about it. But again, like the format was just so it didn't feel fast. It felt grindy, and it felt like you needed to address a lot of things. There was one game that I was playing where my red-white opponent actually had a late game grind out plan, just in case, and they still beat me. They beat me on like turn 12. They didn't beat me on turn 4. But they could have, like, if they were hitting the right land drops and the right cards, they probably could have also had that game plan to just win early, win like by turn 5 or 6. And that's what I like to see in these formats, that you can still pull off a win late game, right? I think they had an Irreverent Gremlin just to like make sure that they were hitting their drops, or not their drops, make sure that they were hitting action. So that did help them. But if we go into let's see, other things that I appreciate about the set, Combat tricks, thankfully, weren't overbearing, right? There was one that was super good. I want to say super good, and that's Turn Inside Out, because +3/+0 is nothing to sneeze at for 1 red mana, and then also getting to Manifest Dread after that. That would also just turn on Delirium, because you just put an instant into the graveyard, and then now you put another card, which if it was a land or if it was an enchantment creature, artifact creature, you probably just turned on Delirium all by that one card, as in addition to the creature that just died, because you usually went on a creature that was about to die. Whoops. Never got to draft this guy either. Drafted a lot of friendly teddies, and you know what? Even though it gives each player a card, and technically is even if you trade, it's still technically a 2-for-1, right? Yeah. No, I guess it's a 1-for-1 there if you trade. This still felt okay because it was an artifact creature and a 2-mana 2/2. So sometimes like giving your opponent a card was like, I guess. Didn't feel great, but it didn't feel like this set was grindy enough where it didn't feel like you were going to lose simply because your opponent drew a single card off of you. It was suboptimal though. Cards like Fear of Infinity. At first, this card looked terrible because it can't block, right? Even if you can keep getting it back over and over and over, it still was like a very real win condition. And I liked it for that. Hey, Enduring Vitality. Let's see. So yeah, combat tricks not overbearing. Splashing super duper easy. There were 2 cycles of dual lands, right? Between the common cycle that would come in untapped if a player had 13 or less life, right? As well as the rare land cycle that would just tap for another color, but they would always come in untapped. The tap for the other color was conditional on if you had either like the color, the basic land type of the color of mana that it would originally tap for, or the other one, right? So like the red-green one would, I think, come out and tap for green, but it would tap for red if you had a mountain or a forest. And that's just like, if you're already doing that, if you're already playing those land types in your deck, that's very easy to pull off. Hey, a Fly Trap. Never drafted that one. I also did appreciate that, like, right before the next set, they did give out as the midweek magic a free Phantom bot draft of this set, you know, let people kind of like relive it. Winter, I don't think this card was good enough. Giving your opponent 2 extra cards a turn, even if you reduced their hand size to 2, just meant that they were emptying their hands and playing as many cards as possible each turn. I don't think it was helpful enough. Let's see. Oh, I guess we can talk. Ooh, this is 2 rares in the pack. Oh, I had never seen Damnation. I completely forgot that there was a cycle of special guests. Wow, this Damnation art's fantastic. Is that Valgavoth? That looks like Valgavoth. Let's see. Things that I don't like about the format is that we only got 2 months. Foundations is like coming out in like a few days. We only got 2 months with this format, and I don't appreciate that. We've been going through these formats super fast. Thankfully, we get 3 months with Foundations, so we're gonna get to draft that a lot. Hopefully it looked super packed too. Like, it looked really good. So I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing that I don't like about this set, and I know I'm going to catch some flack about it, here's some of the duels, is that I don't think that the aesthetic fits Magic the Gathering, right? The 80s slasher flick aesthetic. I know I'm going to catch heat for that. But it's weird that it's trapped in like the 80s, right? It's just that 80s aesthetic, right? Tyvar shows up and he's the jock and he's wearing Jordans, you know. There's televisions and there's phones. That's what I don't like about it. The fact that it's like too close to like the actual 80s Americana. I don't think that that's a good place for Magic to be. I say this knowing full well that they also recently stated that all the Universes Beyond sets are now going to be going directly into Standards. So next year we're going to be playing Final Fantasy in Draft and Amazing Spider-Man in Draft. That said, I don't think that it fits the aesthetic of Magic the Gathering, because the Magic the Gathering was always like, oh yeah, we're going to go to this plane, and you know, like, this is how Magic is in this plane, but it was never like super duper high tech. I guess the return to Kamigawa, I think 10,000 years had passed, and so suddenly it was like, oh, we have cyberpunk technology here, which is interesting. This is not the first Simone that I have, or the first Simone that I've gotten. I feel like I've splashed this before. So that's my real issue with it. But I do think that art direction did an amazing job, and the writing team did an amazing job with the lore, right? The whole, everything exists in the house. The house is the plane. And every time you leave what you think is the house, you're still in another room in the house. And it's because of this corruption that spread like a fungus engulfing an apple from Valgavoth, right? And Valgavoth being the big bad, this giant demon moth. I think that that's actually really cool, especially because, oh, there are some giant moths out there that I find absolutely very spooky. You know, I know that they're not going to hurt me, but I'm not a big fan of flying insects. We were to talk about other things, and those are the only things that I really didn't like about the set. Like, I can't even say that I don't like the fact that I didn't trophy ever. I don't mind that because I enjoyed this set. I wish I could play it more. I just don't have enough time. The next set's coming, and it's just like, all right, you know. My last draft actually filled up super quickly because I think other people realized that too. I think other people realized that the next set's almost here, and if you wanna Duskmourn, you better Duskmourn now, baby. I'm also very ashamed that we didn't hit 69 packs, but it's okay. Marina Vendrill's Grimoire. So let's talk a little bit about some of the rares. Marina Vendrill's Grimoire, there were a few rares, like the entire cycle of Ley Lines, as well as Marina Vendrill's Grimoire. There's a lot of rares in this set that are not meant for draft, and they're outright bad. Now, that's fine if you open up a pack that has multiple rares, which is what these play boosters have nowadays, but it's not fine when it's like the one of, and so that was also kind of rough, right? Like, you would open a pack and go like, I guess I'll take Unable to Scream over this rare because it's Marina Vendrill's Grimoire, or you probably take the Growing Dread here, or maybe the Miasma Demon, one of these two, or maybe you could try to like high roll to say its name. I had somebody do that against me in a draft where they got the Altenac out of their graveyard, and I was like, wow, all right, GG. You did it actually. What else? Oh, so let's talk about some set mechanics, right? Here's a fantastic example. The rooms were actually not bad, especially if when they were entering the battlefield, they did something. If they did something, the turn that they entered the battlefield, they were great, actually. Like this Dollmaker Shop, you can cast this on turn 2 if you had a 1-drop that can attack, and now you have 2 1/1s. That's great. That's fantastic. And then the late game Porcelain Gallery was like, that was a win condition, and that's fantastic. I know we're talking about a mythic here, but like, let's not look at that one. That one's actually a bad one. Greenhouse is bad because it's a good example of a room that doesn't actually do anything, right? Unless you save up for the 4. And if you're doing that on turn 4, that's not good enough, right? But the rooms that either cost only 1 mana to do anything, like the blue one that Surveilled 2, or the rooms that immediately impacted the board, like Glassworks. Glassworks was a fantastic one. 4 damage to any creature for 3 mana. You would just play that as a removal spell in your deck, but then getting the other side of it, so that late game, you would have a mana sink. Oh yeah, I guess I'll spend 5 mana to ping you for 1 every turn. And that felt okay, actually, especially if like your opponent was at 3. It's like, you're at 3. I'm just going to activate this and keep my blockers up. Your go. So rooms that did something when they entered were great. And I think that every deck sort of needed to have some rooms in it, simply because of the grind out value, because these games went longer, and so you needed something to do. If you had rooms and you were flooding, you at least could activate your rooms. You could unlock doors. If you didn't have rooms and you were flooding, you were screwed. That said, the rooms deck was like the blue-red deck, and I think that was one of the worst decks, or early on it was considered one of the worst decks. I think it was actually pretty, I'm going to say mid. I'm going to put it in the mid tier, because you certainly did need to have a lot of like rares and uncommons for it to work, right? Like Ghostly Keybearer. And that's been my criticism of like a lot of the blue-red decks in the past, but it feels like because this format was grindier than normal, you can pull that off and you could still play a competent blue-red rooms deck. And it didn't necessarily have to be rooms. You could just play it as like a control deck that also would benefit from a few rooms. Never got to meme or dream and have the 8 rooms though with that 1 mythic alternate win condition. That would have been nice. Oh, that's right. I forgot to mention. So we were talking about the bomb rares. Some of them are absolute trash. Like, or some of the rares. I completely fell off of this. Some of the rares were very bad. The ley lines were bad. Marine Evangels, Grimoire, bad. But then some of the rares were just stupid. Like Unstoppable Slasher. If I saw this and I was already in 2 colors, I would splash for black. Right? Because this thing is stupid. This is like legitimately ridiculous. You can't let this hit you in draft, because then you go down to, if you're at 20, you just go down to 9. It deals the damage and then it halves the life that you have. So you go to 18 and then you go half of 18 is 9. Like, you would definitely block an 11-3 that was attacking you on turn 3, right? But the problem with it is that, like, if this didn't trade, you know, well, if it trades, it still comes back, right? The death touch is like real frustrating on this. The fact that it comes back, also kind of annoying. I legitimately, if my opponent played one of these on turn 3, I don't think I was going to win that game. It was just so hard. Unless I could exile it immediately. You just look at it and go like, cool. I hate you, Unstoppable Slash you. And there were a few rares that were just like this. The Ghostly Dancers, a few of the Enduring Glimmers, all of the Overlords. They felt like when they hit the board, it was like, oh, so this is, it's going to be like that, isn't it? So there was like sort of a wild swing between the power of rares. Another rare that I think was like probably maybe a little bit too good was the Ghost Vacuum. And it's one of the few cards that can affect the graveyard, but this is also a win condition. And in a grindy format, hitting 6 and then like hitting 6 mana and then like, you know, sacrificing this Ghost Vacuum to then turn every creature that it exiled into a 1/1, getting all of those ETBs, right? That was actually just very good. If you saw one of these, you were a fool to not take it unless there was something way better somehow. Because this is a win condition and it's so much disruption. If your opponent's playing Delirium and you have a Ghost Vacuum, guess what? They're no longer playing Delirium. If your opponent, unless they had a way to destroy this, or get it off the board early, this wasn't a game. You didn't have a game plan, right? Delirium, if they were planning on doing anything with the graveyard, the Reanimator deck, this just hosed all of it. Oh, you just put a Shroud Stomper in your graveyard, that's gone. I don't want to see that anymore. And then later on, they, you know, you just get a free Shroud Stomper. It enters. It still draws you a card. It does all the tokens that it makes do the thing that is stated on the card. On, you know, but they're not cast, so you don't get cast triggers, but you do get the ETBs. That's almost impossible to come back from. Ghost Vacuum was very, very good. I feel like this might have made sense to make this now, because you know what it is? They also printed this card both to reference Ghostbusters. I love Ghostbusters. As well as, and I'm surprised that this isn't in the Ghostbusters secret lair, as well as to put some really good control win graveyard hate win condition in Standard and in Pioneer. Like, I think this might even be better than Unlicensed Terse. Let's talk about some set mechanics. Okay, so here's a good one. Survival was probably the worst set mechanic because so many of these creatures were statted so that they would die. It was a miracle if they would survive. You needed combat tricks, and you needed the combat tricks that would make sure that these creatures survived, right? Because if they didn't, you got nothing. A lot of the survival creatures don't have ETBs. They just have I guess we're dying here. And so if you were trying to play green-white, which was admittedly the worst color combination, it was really hard to pull off the survival things, because like Orphans of the Wheat, you don't want to play. It's a 2/1. It dies to so many incidental pings or pyroclasm, right? Even though it could tap a bunch of your creatures and then like trigger all those survival triggers, that just wasn't good enough. It legitimately wasn't good enough. There were 2 vehicles in the set. They were both at rare. There was the Unidentified Hover Ship, which was a removal spell, And again, another bomb rare, or the Hedger Shredder, which very clever calling it the Hedger Shredder, or the Hedge Shredder, because it makes me think of Ledger Shredder. But again, another rare. They're both worth attacking with too, which is fun. But the survival creatures by themselves, not a big fan. Just like not a big fan of like this doesn't do anything unless you get to untap with it, and then like it survives combat. That's too much to ask, and that's why the survival decks were not good. Every time I played survival, it was like, this feels like I'm really putting together the survival deck, and then like I would go 1 and 3 or 2 and 3, and it's like, oh, it's just not there, is it? Whereas cards like that paid you off for Manifest Dread was fantastic. If you could get Manifest Dread stapled onto something else, oh, you were living the dream, baby. There were 2 rooms at common that would just Manifest Dread when you unlock the door. That was great, because that means that you paid to add a creature to the board. I think that was great. This card is a 1-mana Manifest Dread, and also trade with a creature. You trade up with a creature typically, right? Cryptid Inspector. This thing, if you were playing blue-green Manifest, this thing would get out of hand. If they were doing anything that they were supposed to be doing, this got out of hand. And if Manifest was stapled onto anything else, like the blue bounce spell, it's a sorcery speed bounce spell. It bounces any permanent. You could bounce your own rooms to then redo the recast them, right? Which is a thing that I used to do a few times, but it would also manifest, and that felt really good. Yeah, Manifest Dread was great. Even the card Manifest Dread at common that just manifested Dread was amazing. It was an amazing card, because if you're doing that, you're probably playing Delirium payoffs, which means that you just put a sorcery into the graveyard, you created a creature, so you add it to your board, you created a 2/2 for 2, right? You basically cast a bear, and you put something irrelevant into the graveyard that helped fuel your Delirium. So at the very least, it likely got you halfway to Delirium. Sometimes it got you to Delirium by itself, because you plan on trading that 2/2, and like, let's say that's an instant, right? And you also put in an artifact creature and an enchantment creature. You just had Delirium then. Everything else after that was gravy. Delirium was super easy to pull off in this format. And here's this stupid thing. This thing would just draw you cards. I never got to play the blue-green deck with this guy, but again, survival so bad, you needed cards like Horrid Vigor. And how many Horrid Vigors could you put in your deck, right? I don't know. I would rather play Flesh Burrower over Cartographer, and that's kind of funny. Rooms were great though. I think that you needed to have a couple rooms in your deck, just because. Oh, here's the rare, that alternate win condition. This got you a card, but this was so slow, right? This was just so slow. It got you a card on the 4-mana side. The 3-mana side got you a Surveil, so you could fix your draws, right? And I don't think I ever got to draft and then try to get the alternate win condition off of this, because it doesn't do enough either as a rare. In this pack, I'd probably take the Sheltered by Ghost over that thing. Actually, right? Fear of Isolation was fantastic, by the way. Sheltered by Ghost, I think, did too much. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. +1/+0 is fine. Ward 2, and that is fine. The lifelink. Get away from me with that. Why are you giving this thing lifelink? Oh, and it's also an Oblivion Ring. This set was super pushed. And this is the first set that I've really viewed draft as we all should, right? Where you need to be doing things on turn 1, turn 2. I thought the Veteran Survivor was going to be so good, and it wasn't good enough, because you needed to exile cards. He wasn't just untap with this 3 times. You needed to exile cards. But yeah, what was I saying? This is the first set where I definitely approached it with, okay, this is the speed of draft. You can't not add to the board on turn 2, turn 3. You can't not do that. Either mulligan to it, make sure you play enough 2 and 2 drops, make sure you play some 3 drops, right? And don't expect, even though this is a grindy set, don't expect to hit your 6 or 7s. And if your 6 or 7 is in your opener, you might want to consider mulliganing it, unless It was a land cycler, which again made it so easy to splash. It made it so easy to splash. Thank you, land cyclers. I know that some people were not happy that it cost 2 to land cycle, but remember, this is for standard. The 1 mana land cycling in Lord of the Rings, that was printed directly for Modern and Legacy and Vintage and Commander. They can have that type of power creep. That's too much power creep. But yeah, like again, rooms, fantastic. Love rooms, absolutely love rooms. Especially when they added to the board. Manifest Dread on the front side, and then on the back side, the Tunnel of Hate. That's a win condition. That is a win condition. But again, you probably just take the Unstoppable Slasher. Although Osseous Stick Twister is like a jerk. There was a lot of incidental life gain in this format as well for Black White because it sort of needed it. I think that every time I played Reanimator, it was one of the most fun decks I had played. And you would notice that there's just like a lot of weird, here, gain some life off of this. Stapled onto a few things. Rite of the Moth was gain 3 life. Osseous Stick Twister can gain you life by virtue of its trigger when you had Delirium. Otherwise, it was a 2/2 with lifelink, which also was just fine. But if your opponent chose to take the 2 damage from it, you gain 2 life off of it. Let's see. Oh, so I didn't mention earlier, small creatures were actually a very viable theme in this format. And so was main boarding Pyroclasm. Not just because you could play the red-white aggro deck, but because in blue-white, there was Gremlin Tamer and like getting 4 or 5 gremlins off of that thing felt like you drew extra cards while playing rooms that then got you more value on top of value. So I really actually kind of got to enjoy some go wide decks. But removal, because of that and because of like value engines like that, removal became so much more important, right? Cards like Scorching Dragonfire, Glassworks, even Murder, even Winter's Intervention. You just needed to have removal. You needed to have the removal. Hey, an Entity Tracker. Never got to even see one of these in draft. You needed to have removal because if your opponent got to do anything engine-y, that might be it, right? That might be it. I don't understand the point of Comeback Wrong, and I'm assuming it's so that you can sacrifice the creature for value? I don't even know. I'm almost tempted to say that the best card in this pack was actually the Unable to Scream. Although there have been times where I've gotten an Unwilling Vessel up to like 6 or 7 counters. And it's just like, come on, kill my Unwilling Vessel. Don't you want to die faster to this big flyer? And it's also... it's easy to miss this. It's creates an XX spirit creature with flying based on all the counters on it. So if it died while it was like... while it had like stun counters on it for whatever reason, or if it died with a bunch of +1/+1 counters because you grew it, this spirit that it spat out would have been massive. And you could easily put +1/+1 counters on this thing because there was a room in white that would just put a 1/1 counter on up to 2 creatures, like the Unwilling Vessel, right? And on the front side, it would make a Glimmer. If you cast that room and make the Glimmer while this guy's out, you get 2 counters just for free. I do wish it was a 2/3 instead of a 3/2 though. It feels too aggressive for blue, you know, but I think you'd actually take Unable to Scream over it. All in all, I want more sets like this, actually. I want more sets like this. I want more grindy sets. There's the Ghostly Dancers. Screw these things, by the way. Every time someone resolved this around me, it was just like, oh, or against me, it would be like, oh, that sure is nice. Good for you. You immediately made 5 power and 2 bodies. And you're playing... you're going to Unable to Scream one of my other creatures on top of it. Thank you. Thank you. That's exactly what I needed. But the blue-white deck was really good. I really enjoyed Fear of Isolation, Tunnel. This is a fantastic start for a blue-white deck, even. And then you get to see some Slumber. Again, like you wanted to take all those removal spells. Let's see. I think that's it, though. I think that's everything that I had to say about this format. Just really, really enjoyed it. Wow, Charred Foyer. Is that good enough? I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed a lot of the things that it did. It didn't feel too aggressive. You could pull off things like Fear of Imposters was fine, actually, especially if you traded up on mana. If they cast a 7-drop and then you were like, no, Manifest Dread instead, right? Sure, the Manifest token or the Manifest that they create can trade with this, but the disruption is so good, and the fact that it's an enchantment creature with flash. I really, really had a fantastic time with this set. I'm sad to see it go. I really am. I'm very sad to see it go. We're getting Foundations, and I guess I could talk a little bit about Foundations to make up for some time. Oh, this is one of the other cards that could make your what's it called? Survival deck work. But again, the survival deck is just not good. It just wasn't good enough. Oh, and I remember playing one of these and someone Scorching Dragon firing him in response, and it was like, thanks. I didn't have another creature to tap, so I was like, cool, that's great. But I think, despite the fact that I could not, I think part of why I enjoy this set so much is because I didn't crack it, right? And it felt like it was making me come back for more. Oh, see, here's one. Under the Skin. You would probably take Manifest Dread. You'd probably take this over Manifest Dread, rather. But Under the Skin did so much, right? Late game, it could get you back something that you needed, or that you lost early that you might want back, right? Or when you Manifest Dread, you could just get the card that it manifested, or that didn't get manifested, right? So this was an early and a late game play. Granted, Manifest Dread's also still very good. And Emerge from the Cocoon. Hey, some incidental life gain. Also, in going back to the flavor of the set, some of these characters, I don't know why they're here. I don't know why Kaito, and I didn't read the story, I'm gonna be perfectly honest, but like the whole Omen Paths thing, I just wish that they would stop using Omen Paths. Is this my first Creepy Peepee? Oh, set nickname goes to Creepy Peepee. I think I saw Ethan Sachs from Lords of Limited call this a Creepy Peepee accidentally, and it's just like, that stuck for me. I'm sorry, Creepy Peepee? Oh god, it's even vaguely phallic. Love Victor, even though he's not a good guy. Love him. Absolutely loved playing that card. But yeah, like, what did you guys think? Oh, this is my first Roller Crusher ride. I got this in the, I never got to draft this in the regular drafting, but I did get this in Midweek Magic, and this is a house. You can splash this in any color, just put like, or any other deck, just put a few red sources and you're fine. Absolutely fantastic. Trapped in the Screen. Unfortunately, this is not the other card that I wanted to talk about either. The Cursed Screen? Cursed Screen was also amazing because it helped you splash. Right? It's Haunted Screen. Haunted Screen, which was ramp fixing, and there's the hover ship. Ramp fixing and a win condition. I couldn't tell you how many times the games would just go long enough where suddenly their ramp, their mana rock turned into a 7/7 that just beat the ever-loving hell out of me. Also, I'm gonna say I called this early on in one of my first drafts. I was like, Glimmerlight's actually not bad, huh? It's not bad. It was one of the top commons of the set. Just if you just had 3 mana, you could make a Grey Ogre out of it, right? You cast this, it makes a Glimmer, and then you equip the Glimmer. Suddenly you have a 3 mana 2/2. That's fine. But you could also think about it this way. This is like having a 1/1 counter that you could move between other creatures that you had. This was incredibly annoying. It was a fantastic mana, not even a mana sink. It was just something that to do with your mana late game, right? For 1 colorless mana, it's just super efficient. And this is one of those sets where I feel like they actually managed to print worthwhile 1-drops. Because typically I don't like to draft 1-drops, but you know, like being able to move the glimmer light around or to use the unable to scream. That was a really good removal spell. The that 1/2/1 survivor, I forget what it's called now. It would exile cards from your graveyard, from your opponent's, from any graveyard, and once it had 3 exiled, that was still like fine. Mourn was fine, right? Actually, Mourn was great in the red-white deck because it allowed you to attack with Arabella and then exile her after they blocked in an attempt to kill her, to then replay her and just have that loop going so that you could just win that way, which was rude, right? Rude. But again, like there were so many just like hidden strategies to this format. And I don't even think that's a hidden strategy. You know, this one was a fun one. Twitching Doll was an amazing card. If your opponent did not kill this early enough, it's like, oh, here's 6 2/2s. This was an amazing win condition. On top of it being a mana dork, I know it's a rare. It's one of those like bomb rares that your opponent needed to respect and they needed to get rid of early. Let's see. I was not a big fan of Dashing Bloodsucker, but again, incidental life gain. And if you did pull off the Eerie trigger, I didn't like this card. I didn't like putting it in my deck. But there were so many games where it did feel like I was losing to it because my opponent was able to get Eerie triggers. From this pack, I'd probably just take the Liver Die or maybe the Razorkin Needlehead, but realistically the Liver Die, because I don't think I've ever seen a card like this before. This flexibility of either instant speed reanimate or instant speed destroy target creature. You could reanimate something big and then, you know, ambush block something, and that was just fantastic, right? Yeah. Here's our last pack. That's been 68 packs of Duskmourn, but that's been also 68 packs of me yapping your ear off. And if you enjoyed that, thank you. Thank you for listening to me ramble about this set. I hope you enjoyed it as well as I did. The set, not necessarily me, but the set itself. Also, what a card to end on, the Unholy Annex / Ritual Chamber. Both sides of this you could win with, right? Although losing 2 every turn wasn't great, but the 6/6 stapled on the back half of this via Ritual Chamber, oh, that felt so filthy. And again, another bomb rare that it was like, can you deal with this? You're going to lose to it if you can't deal with this. If you enjoyed that, please like, share, subscribe, come over to twitch.tv/dickrecord, right? Become a dickhead over there, as well as subscribe to my new channel, Record Player 1. I need to make a splash image with that so that it looks like the logo for the movie or the book, because I like to do parody logos for these things. It's just a channel of my Let's Plays, mostly unfiltered, edited down for content, and so that you don't have to watch me continuously die to something stupid. Right now, there's a series of videos of Parasite Eve, one of my favorite PlayStation JRPGs. Please go check that out. Please go give that channel a follow. We just started it, and I know that you guys are going to enjoy that. I'm going to try to make that channel more PG, so I might actually even consider migrating the podcast over there. So please go give that a follow. And with that, you know what, let's make it 69. I do have these Duskmourn alchemy packs. I know that nobody likes alchemy. Alchemy can go right the hell away. Literally go to hell, alchemy. I hate alchemy so much. What's our rare here? Effie, fast learn. Let's see how stupid this card is. Enlist. Okay, out of nowhere, survival. If it is second main phase. If Effie's tap, put 1. Each taps creature you control. Okay, then seek a survival. Yeah, see, I hate alchemy. All these cards are so stupid and broken. This is a win condition on top of a card advantage engine, less than or equal to the number of tapped creatures you control. And it's basically a card with survivor. The only thing that makes sense is that it's a legendary, so that you can't really have more than one of these out at a time. But why do they spend so much effort making these alchemy cards? Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, right? Let me know your takes on the format. Let me know how much you hate alchemy as well, because there's no way that you like alchemy. There's no way, unless you're insane, in which case, sure, you're allowed to have that opinion if there's not a good brain cell rattling around in your head. Now I'm being mean, I'm sorry. But until next time, stay safe out there. Don't eat Yellowstone. Remember, if you're not here, you're dickless. Have a good night, folks. Oh, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening! Oh my god, I keep forgetting to say that.